So recently, I had the great opportunity to follow a long time dream of mine. I'm talking years in the making, y'all. Last week, I was sitting with tea and I pulled some cards from the Kim Cran's Alchemy deck. And I did this spread where you pull a less of something and more of something in your life. And the card I pulled for the less of something was all about union and intimacy and connection, which made no sense at all. And then this more card was this beautiful blue card, azure something. I can't remember in this moment. And what stuck out in my mind in that moment was the color of indigo. And for years, I have wanted to learn how to dye with indigo, to do plant dyeing, and also to make my own clothing. And so as I sat here with these cards, drinking tea, it struck me to text my mother and ask her if she would teach me how to start making my clothes. She has everything that I would need. She has a sewing machine and needle and thread and all the bits and bobs that she had when she used to make clothing that don't really get utilized often, if ever. And I texted a couple friends who I felt might be in the know of who to talk to. And next thing I know, the next day, I get a text from my mom. She's like, yes, let's do it. Put something on the calendar. Also, did you know Joanne's is going out of business? So as soon as I left my dentist appointment that day, I went straight to Joanne's. And in my very zealous, really zealous, enthusiastic excitement, all the words, I filled my cart with all the fabrics in my naivete. After doing so, I proceeded to look at patterns, which was a completely new territory for me. And luckily, there was this sweet older woman who was flipping through a catalog, and she gave me great guidance. She'd been making clothes for years and years, and she must have been in her, I don't know, 60s. And I had a little angel helping me find what I needed. So after taking many photos on my phone, feeling so excited, feeling so empowered and inspired, I went to these massive, janky filing cabinets and started pulling out all the numbers. And if you've ever made clothes or found patterns, there's these very vintage looking patterns that you get to get the clothes that you want. So I must have pulled out roundly about 20 or so patterns, and then slowly but surely went through my process of culling what I did and didn't need and what I was willing to invest in at the time, knowing I knew literally nothing about how to make clothes, and went from truly 0 to 100 only to get to the moment where I was getting my fabric and buying the patterns and figuring out what I needed and understanding all the different numbers and items that I need on the back of the patterns. And my mom had shown me that, I guess years ago, she had bought two patterns that were actually very much my style, one of them being a jumpsuit. And I'm all about the onesie. And so I went up to the woman at the desk and she started schooling me, very kindly, schooling me about all the things I was so not in the know of and was so humbled by how much I did not know about how many details go into making your own clothes and buying the right fabrics and knowing. And I knew some things like what fabrics I got had matched the patterns and the sizing, but the measurements and the amount and all of that was so over my head. And so after being at Joann's for roughly about 2 hours in a time crunch, needing to get home to be on a call, I ended up walking out with one fabric and two patterns and put the rest back and went on my way. Fast forward to Monday of this week, I was ready to go and I had spent the night over at Easter and got to be with my family and immediately got to work in the morning while navigating and weaving, quite literally, with calls that I had that day. And most people, or at least some people, they might have started with a bag or a t-shirt or something simple. No, I decided to start with a jumpsuit with pockets and insert stuff to be more comfortable up top. And so on the journey went, and just laughing at how big of a project I chose to take on. And there's this such dynamic tension and deep reflection that I received through this entire process of cutting out so many different shapes and understanding how pieces fit together and learning quite literally a new language while also learning how to use the sewing machine and understand the ways things fit together and how they're written to understand how they fit together and putting pieces of the puzzle together, and all the while seeing this vision for what I'm ultimately the goal that I'm headed to of making this completed jumpsuit, and like daydreaming and fantasizing and wanting to be there, right? Wanting to be there, wanting to be there, wanting to be there. And as I was going through this journey, I was confronted with, and what was illuminated for me was my own entrepreneurial journey as well, and also my own understandings about myself through the process of being a beginner with sewing. And the wisdom and insight that came through being a beginner again and really knowing nothing, and yet having the support of my mother and the foundation and understanding of her guidance, which she was so good at how she was supporting me. She would like come in, kind of give me the lay of the land, and then she would let me do it. She'd come in, give me the lay of the land, and let me do it. And so this cadence went on all through the night. And then I was so committed that I wanted to stay the next day, and it's like, I'm going to get this done. Like, it was very revealing, my determination throughout this whole thing, that I have such a strong, deep commitment to perseverance and seeing things through, even though they're challenging, even though they're frustrating, and even though I washed my mind want to give up over and over and over again, and all the ways that I would be like, well, what if it doesn't fit? Oh, this is going to be so interesting if it isn't the right size, or if it doesn't work out, or right, like all these ways that my mind was sabotaging what ultimately was this deeper commitment to see this thing through. And so coming back to my entrepreneurial journey, there have been so many times where I've been so longing for the destination that I've forgotten to enjoy the journey, or I've been committed to like grasping for the thing and then not being in touch with the joy that the recognition of how far I've come brings. And this oscillation of getting caught in a future moment and then having to come back to the present moment, or feeling the challenge and wanting to give up, and then remembering what I'm devoted to and what I can believe in. And the things that I found really helped when I got discouraged was to acknowledge, like, wow, even though you chose something really hard, look at all the things you've learned because you did it this way. And instead of wishing that I'd done it easier, which I could have definitely done, I was just constantly reminding myself of the gratitude I had for doing it the way that I was choosing to do it and the ways that I was obviously doing it in that moment. And so all this different wisdom and illumination was washing through me and weaving through my consciousness as I was threading and stitching and sewing and reworking and feeling frustrated and feeling at peace and feeling calm and feeling easeful with each stitch and each motion and the patient process of pushing the fabric through, and then having to remember, wait, which way do I do it again, and which way do I pin in the fabric to align with it. And it was over and over these details that I had to keep teaching myself and relearning, right? Because I'm a beginner. And so sometimes, like, or some of the things that I'm really taking away is that as much as I was able to nurture and hold and tend to myself and love myself through the process of being really challenged and frustrated and impatient, it continuously coming back to being humbled, being grateful, grateful, being patient, being trusting, being committed to following and seeing the thing all the way through, and believing in myself that I could really do that. The thing is still a work in progress, much as I am, right? Constantly changing and transforming all the time. And at this moment, I'm just feeling so grateful for such a unexpected teacher and all the ways that I didn't know what I was going to get on this journey through making clothes, making one piece of clothing. Who knows what comes next, right? And yet, the reflection that has gifted me to understand that, my journey is not complete. I am a work in progress. This piece is a work in progress. My business is a work in progress. And there are constantly phases and seasons of ourselves that we are constantly allowing to become whatever bigger picture, bigger vision they one day will be. So, unexpected surprises and teachers, and feeling so grateful for being a work in progress.